In the dim glow of a rainy afternoon in Seattle, Emily Thompson stepped out of her sleek black SUV, her designer heels clicking against the wet pavement, as if protesting the humility of the place. She was the CEO of Thompson Innovations, a tech giant on the brink of ruin. Yet here she was at a modest spa, tucked away in the misty forests of the Pacific Northwest, seeking escape in a world far removed from boardrooms and betrayal. It seemed absurd. A woman who commanded billions reduced to craving a simple massage. But the weight of Vance Hargrove's treachery had left her unraveling her nights, haunted by spreadsheets and suspicions. Emily pushed open the wooden door of Evergreen Retreat, the scent of eucalyptus and cedar wafting out like a reluctant invitation. The lobby was unpretentious, with worn leather chairs arranged around a stone fireplace, where flames crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on walls lined with faded photographs of local hiking trails. No crystal chandeliers or marble counters here. Just a reception desk made from reclaimed barn wood, behind which sat a middle-aged woman with a kind smile and a name tag reading Linda. Emily approached her posture straight despite the exhaustion etching lines around her eyes. She had driven 2 hours from the city, leaving behind the chaos of emergency meetings and whispered rumors in the office hallways. Vance, her longtime business partner, had stolen proprietary algorithms for their latest AI-driven medical diagnostics tool, nearly bankrupting the company overnight. Lawsuits loomed, investors fled, and Emily's once unshakable confidence had cracked like thin ice underfoot. Linda glanced up from her computer screen, her fingers pausing on the keyboard. "Welcome to Evergreen. Do you have an appointment?" Emily nodded, pulling out her phone to show the confirmation email. "Yes, for a 1-hour deep tissue massage. I booked it online last night." The receptionist typed quickly, her eyes scanning the screen. "Perfect, Ms. Thompson. Your therapist, Matt Lawson, will be with you shortly. He's one of our best. Quiet, but his hands work wonders." Emily settled into a chair, the leather creaking under her weight. She scrolled through her emails absent-mindedly, but her mind wandered back to the betrayal. Vance had been like a brother, sharing late-night strategy sessions over takeout pizza in the early days, when Thompson Innovations was just a startup in a cramped garage in Silicon Valley. They'd moved operations to Seattle for the talent pool and tax incentives, building an empire on trust, or so she thought. Now, with the company's stock plummeting and reporters circling like vultures, she needed this break. Just 1 hour to forget the unsigned contracts piling up on her desk, the ones Vance had conveniently forgotten to finalize before his exit. A door at the end of the hall opened with a soft click, and Matt Lawson emerged. He was in his mid-30s with a lean build, honed by years of physical work rather than gym sessions. His dark hair was cropped short, and his blue eyes held a depth that seemed out of place in the serene spa setting. He wore the standard uniform, a simple white polo and khaki pants, but carried himself with an effortless poise, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Emily stood, extending her hand. "I'm Emily." Matt shook it firmly, his grip warm and steady. "Matt, follow me, please." He led her down a narrow corridor, lined with unmarked doors, each one identical in its plain wooden facade, no labels or signs to distinguish them. The air grew warmer, infused with the subtle aroma of lavender oil. They entered a small treatment room, dimly lit by salt lamps that cast a golden hue over the space. A massage table dominated the center, draped in crisp white sheets, with a shelf holding bottles of oils and lotions. In one corner, an old wooden cabinet stood slightly ajar, revealing stacks of towels and a faint outline on the wall where a plaque might once have hung. A trace of a past achievement, perhaps a certification or award now removed and forgotten. "Make yourself comfortable," Emily said Matt, his voice low and even. I'll step out while you undress and get under the sheet. Face down to start. She complied, the room's quiet, enveloping her as she slipped out of her clothes and lay on the table. The sheet was soft against her skin, warmed slightly by a heating pad beneath. When Matt returned, he adjusted the lights further, the sound of his footsteps soft on the bamboo floor. He poured oil into his hands, rubbing them together with a rhythmic motion that echoed like distant rain. Any areas of tension I should focus on? My shoulders and neck, she replied, her voice muffled by the face cradle. Work stress has me knotted up. He began with gentle pressure, his fingers tracing the lines of her muscles with precision. There was no small talk, no probing questions about her life or career. Just the steady rhythm of his hands, kneading away the knots that had built up over months of sleepless nights. Emily felt the tension ease her mind, drifting for the first time in weeks. Who was this man? In a city full of ambitious techies and networking hustlers, his silence was refreshing, almost intriguing. She glanced up slightly when he paused to adjust the sheet, catching a glimpse of his focused expression, the faint scar on his knuckles hinting at a history beyond spa walls. As the session progressed, Matt's touch revealed a deeper skill, his knowledge of anatomy evident in how he targeted pressure points without causing pain. Emily's thoughts wandered to her own erased contributions, the early prototypes she'd designed alone in that garage, now credited solely to Vance in the company's official records. She pushed the bitterness aside, focusing on the present. The rain pattered against the window, a soothing backdrop to the session. Toward the end, as he worked on her lower back, Emily broke the silence. You've got a real talent for this. How long have you been doing massages? Matt's hands paused briefly, then resumed. A few years now. It's rewarding work. His response was curt, but not unkind. Emily sensed a wall there, a quiet reserve that piqued her curiosity. She turned her head slightly. Ever think about doing something else? You seem like you could handle more. He chuckled softly, a low sound that vibrated through his fingers. This is enough for me. Let's finish with some stretches. The session ended too soon, leaving Emily feeling lighter. Her body relaxed, but her mind buzzing with unspoken questions. She dressed quickly, the room's warmth lingering on her skin. Back in the lobby, she approached Linda again, her voice casual. That was excellent. Tell me, is Matt single? Linda smiled knowingly, glancing around before leaning in. As far as I know, he's never dated anyone seriously. Lives alone up in the hills. Kind of a loner. Probably hasn't been with anyone in that way. Emily's pulse quickened, a mix of intrigue and challenge stirring within her. She thanked Linda and stepped outside the rain, having slowed to a drizzle. As she climbed into her SUV, she replayed the encounter, the unmarked room and Matt's steady hands etched in her memory. Little did she know this overlooked encounter would unravel secrets long buried. But for now, she drove back to the city, the spa fading in her rearview mirror, a paradoxical oasis in her storm-tossed life. The drive back to Seattle felt shorter than the one out Emily's mind, replaying the massage like a loop of film, each frame focusing on Matt's hands and that enigmatic scar. She pulled into the underground garage of her high-rise condo, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, as she parked beside the row of luxury cars that now seemed like relics of a fading empire. Up in her penthouse, the city skyline stretched out through floor-to-ceiling windows, rain-streaked glass, blurring the lights of downtown into a hazy glow. She poured herself a glass of Cabernet, the deep red liquid swirling in the stemless glass, and sank into the leather sectional, her laptop open on the coffee table. Emails from lawyers flooded her inbox, each one detailing the fallout from Vance's betrayal, the stolen code embedded in his new venture, the investors demanding explanations. But tonight her thoughts drifted elsewhere, to the spa's unmarked rooms and the man who had eased her pain without a word of judgment. By morning, the intrigue had solidified into determination. Emily skipped her usual routine of black coffee and market reports, instead calling her assistant to clear her schedule for the afternoon. She needed another session, she told herself, just to unwind further. The truth was sharper. Matt's refusal to engage had hooked her a rare challenge in a world where people bent to her will for a fraction of her wealth. She arrived at Evergreen Retreat under a clearing sky, the forest air crisp with the scent of pine needles crushed underfoot. Linda greeted her with the same warm smile, her fingers tapping on the keyboard as she confirmed the booking. "Back so soon. Matt's available again if you'd like." Emily nodded, her eyes scanning the lobby for any sign of him. "Yes, please. He was perfect last time." In the treatment room, the setup was identical. The salt lamps casting their amber light, the wooden cabinet with its faint wall outline where something had been stripped away, perhaps a diploma or photo, that no longer fit the narrative. Matt entered quietly, his polo shirt slightly rumpled at the sleeves as if he'd been working non-stop. He nodded in greeting, his blue eyes meeting hers briefly before he busied himself with the oils. Same as before, shoulders and neck. "Actually, let's make it a full body today," she said, her voice steady but laced with intent. As she undressed and lay down the sheet cool against her skin, she felt a surge of anticipation. His hands started on her back, the pressure firm yet intuitive tracing knots she hadn't even realized were there. The room filled with the subtle sounds of his breathing and the occasional drip from a faucet in the adjoining bathroom. Halfway through, Emily turned her head slightly. "You know, Matt, you have a gift. It's not just technique. It's like you understand the body on a deeper level. Ever study medicine or something?" His fingers hesitated for a split second, then continued. "Not formally. Just picked things up over the years." She pressed on her psychology, shifting from relaxation to pursuit. "Come on, you're too precise for that. What did you do before this?" A pause, the air thickening with unspoken tension. "Odd jobs, mostly. Let's focus on your tension here," he said, his thumbs digging into a spot near her shoulder blade. Emily winced, but persisted. "I'm serious. You could be doing more. Dinner with me tonight. My treat. Somewhere nice in the city." Matt's hand stopped, and he stepped back, wiping them on a towel. The room felt smaller suddenly, the shadows from the lamps lengthening across the floor. "I appreciate the offer, Emily, but I don't mix work with personal life." She sat up, clutching the sheet around her, her face flushing with a mix of embarrassment and defiance. "It's just dinner. No strings." He met her gaze evenly, his expression unreadable. "Still no thank you." The rejection stung sharper than Vance's betrayal in its quiet finality. Emily dressed in silence, the zipper of her dress catching slightly as her hands trembled. Back in the lobby, she paid quickly, avoiding Linda's eyes. But as she stepped outside, the frustration boiled over. She slammed the car door, her fists gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened. Who was he to turn her down, a masseur in a backwoods spa, while she helmed a Fortune 500 contender? The paradox fueled her, drawn to his simplicity, yet enraged by it. That evening, alone in her condo, with the city humming below, Emily couldn't let it go. She poured another glass of wine, the tartness biting her tongue, and opened her laptop. A quick search on her private database, perks of running a tech firm, yielded nothing on Matt Lawson beyond a basic address in the hills. Intrigued, she texted her go-to private investigator, a discreet former cop named Ray, who'd helped uncover Vance's early indiscretions. "Dig into Matt Lawson. Works at Evergreen Retreat. Full background, no holds barred." Ray's reply came swiftly. "On it. Expect prelims in 24 hours." The next day, dragged in the office, a sleek glass tower overlooking Puget Sound, where conference rooms buzzed with crisis talks. Emily paced her corner suite, the carpet muffling her steps, staring at the wall where a partnership plaque with Vance's name had been removed, leaving a faint rectangular mark, a trace of a past achievement erased from view. Her team presented recovery strategies, charts projecting losses in stark red lines, but her focus wavered. When Ray's email arrived, she opened it eagerly. The report was thin at first. Matt Lawson, 35, no criminal record, lives in a modest cabin off Highway 2. But deeper formally, Dr. Matthew Lawson, board-certified surgeon at Seattle General, specialized in neurosurgery. Left 3 years ago after a botched operation. A young patient, complications from misdiagnosed aneurysm. Official records listed it as unavoidable, but whispers of negligence. He vanished from medical circles, his name scrubbed from hospital directories, like a person erased from official records. No lawsuits, but the guilt must have crushed him. Now he massaged away others' pains, hiding in plain sight. Emily leaned back in her chair, the leather creaking, a thrill mixing with sympathy. So that's why the precision, the scar on his knuckles, perhaps from surgical tools. She imagined him in scrubs under bright OR lights hands, steady on a scalpel instead of skin. The revelation shifted something in her. The rejection felt less personal, more a shield against his own demons. But curiosity burned hotter. She booked another session for the following day, determined to crack his facade. Arriving at the spa, the forest paths slick from overnight rain, she found Matt waiting in the lobby, his posture tense. Emily, back again. Couldn't stay away, she said lightly, following him to the room. This time as he worked, she stayed silent at first, letting the rhythm build. Then softly, I know about your past, Matt. The surgery. Why hide it? His hands froze, the oil dripping slowly onto the sheet. He stepped back, his face paling under the dim light. How? Does it matter? I'm not here to judge, but you're wasting your talent. Matt's eyes narrowed, a flicker of anger breaking his calm. You think you can buy answers or me? Emily sat up again, her voice rising. $1 million for one night. No questions, no commitments. He stared at her, the room silent except for the hum of the heater. I don't sell myself, Emily. Money doesn't buy respect or redemption. The words hit like a slap, her psychology reeling from the moral high ground he claimed. She dressed furiously, storming out past Linda, who watched with wide eyes. Outside in her SUV, Emily's breath came in short bursts, the dashboard lights illuminating her flushed face. She had pushed too far, and now the challenge felt like obsession. Unbeknownst to her, a passerby had filmed her exit, the slammed door, the muttered curses, uploading it to social media with a caption, Tech CEO meltdown at local spa. It went viral overnight, memes flooding her feeds by morning. employees averting gazes as she passed. She slammed her office door, the sound line where a framed award for innovation had hung. Vance's idea to display it now removed after his departure, a trace of a past achievement never mentioned in recent board minutes. Emily paced her heels, sinking into the plush carpet, the city sprawl below a blurry backdrop through the tinted windows. The video had amassed millions of views, hashtags like CEO Meltdown, trending alongside her company's stock ticker, which dipped further in response. Investors emailed concerns, PR teams scrambled for damage control, suggesting statements about personal time and misunderstandings. But Emily ignored them, her focus sharpening on Matt. The rejection burned, amplified by the mockery, yet it fueled her resolve to understand him. Ray's full report arrived via encrypted file detailing Matt's fall from grace, the surgical error, a child's life, lost to a ruptured vessel, misread on scans. Hospital records showed his name, redacted in follow-up audits, like a person erased from official records to protect the institution's reputation. He had walked away with a quiet settlement, no public scandal, vanishing into anonymity. Emily leaned against her desk, the cool wood grounding her as she absorbed the details. Photos attached showed a younger Matt in scrubs, smiling confidently, in a group shot from a medical conference, his hand raised in toast. Now that man hid behind massages and solitude. Sympathy flickered, mingling with her bruised ego. She needed to confront this to turn the narrative. Booking yet another session felt reckless with the spotlight on her, but she did it anyway, arriving at the spa under a baseball cap and sunglasses, the forest canopy dripping from recent rain. Linda's eyes widened at the desk, her voice hushed. "Miss Thompson, we've seen the video. Are you okay?" Emily forced a smile, removing her disguise. "Just a misunderstanding. Is Matt in?" Linda nodded hesitantly, buzzing him through an intercom. The corridor felt longer this time, the unmarked doors blending into one another like forgotten chapters. In the treatment room, the air hung heavy with eucalyptus, the salt lamps humming softly. Matt entered, his expression, guarded arms crossed over his chest. "Emily, I saw the video too. This needs to stop." She stood her ground, the sheet on the table untouched. "Why? Because I know your secret, Dr. Lawson." His jaw tightened, a vein pulsing at his temple. He glanced at the wooden cabinet, its doors closed tight, hiding whatever remnants of his old life might linger. "You had no right to dig. That life's over." "Over, you were brilliant," she pressed, stepping closer, the scent of his soap, clean and unadorned, wafting toward her. A neurosurgeon, saving lives, now rubbing shoulders in a spa. What happened with that kid? It was a mistake, not malice. Matt's eyes darkened, shadows playing across his face from the low light. He turned away, adjusting a bottle on the shelf with deliberate slowness. "Mistakes cost lives. I couldn't hold a scalpel after that. This," he gestured to the room, "is penance. Helping without harm." Emily's psychology shifted, the anger softening into something raw. She touched his arm lightly, feeling the tension in his muscles. "Penance? Or hiding, I get it. Vance betrayed me, stole everything we built. I'm fighting to save my company, but nights are hell. Maybe we're both running." He pulled back, but his gaze lingered, a crack in the wall. "Running keeps people safe. From me, anyway." The session proceeded awkwardly, his hands professional but distant, the pressure lighter than before. Emily lay there, the sheet's texture rough against her skin, her mind racing. As he worked on her calves, she whispered, "Let me help you. Come back to medicine. I have connections. My firm's in medtech. We could clear your name." Matt sighed, his breath warm on the air. No, some doors stay closed. She dressed in silence after the room's warmth oppressive now. Outside the parking lot was empty, no lurking phones this time. But the video's damage lingered her phone, buzzing with more alerts. Late-night shows, joking about the Millionaire's massage mishap. Back in the city, Emily met with her legal team in a dimly lit conference room, projectors casting glows on whiteboards, scrawled with timelines. Vance's countersuit loomed, claiming she had falsified data to oust him. Evidence was thin, but his lawyers were sharks. That night alone, with a takeout salad wilting on her counter, Emily delved deeper online anonymous accounts, confirming Matt's story forum posts from former colleagues praising his skill, lamenting his sudden exit. One thread mentioned an unsigned contract from his residency days, a research grant he never claimed after the incident, leaving funds unallocated and his contributions uncredited. It humanized him further, this man who chose erasure over excuses. Driven by a mix of empathy and obsession, she returned to the spa 2 days later, the drive winding through fog-shrouded roads. Matt was in the lobby this time, stacking towels, his sleeves rolled up, revealing faded tattoos, medical symbols perhaps. Emily, this has to end. The video. It's bad for business here, too. I came to apologize, she said softly, her voice echoing in the empty space. I was out of line. The offer, the digging. But hearing your story, it mirrors mine. Vance was my partner for a decade. We pioneered AI for early disease detection. Now he's twisting it against me. Matt set the towels down, his posture, relaxing slightly. The fireplace crackled embers glowing like distant stars. Betrayal cuts deep. I trusted my judgment once. Cost a family everything. They sat in the worn chairs, the conversation flowing haltingly at first. Emily shared details of the theft, the late nights coding algorithms alone, while Vance schmoozed investors. Matt listened, his eyes, thoughtful fingers tracing the armrest's grain. Sounds like he manipulated the data. In medicine, that's like altering scans. Deadly. Exactly, she replied, leaning forward. If I could prove it, he hesitated, then nodded. Hypothetically, check the metadata on your originals. Timestamps don't lie. The advice sparked hope, a shift from adversary to ally. As she left the rain starting again, pattering on leaves like applause, Emily felt a tentative bond forming. The viral joke faded in her mind, replaced by this quiet revelation. But Vance's shadow grew. An email arrived that evening, his lawyers demanding depositions. Emily forwarded it to her team, her fingers flying over the keys. Meanwhile, Ray sent more on matte photos of his old OR sterile lights, glaring on instruments, a world he had fled. In the following days, the humiliation video spawned copycats, but Emily ignored them, focusing on rebuilding. She visited the spa once more, not for massage, but conversation. Matt met her outside, under a dripping awning. You're persistent, guilty, she admitted with a wry smile. But talking helps. Tell me more about that case. If you want. He looked at the forest mist rising from the ground. The kid was 8. Headache misdiagnosed as migraine. Aneurysm burst mid-surgery. I replay it every night. Emily touched his hand, the contact electric. You didn't mean harm. Forgive yourself. His eyes met hers, vulnerability flashing. Maybe. Someday. The exchange marked a turning point, her psychology evolving from conquest to connection. As she drove away, the unmarked spa sign fading, she pondered the erased parts of both their lives. The fog clung to the winding roads like a shroud. As Emily drove away from the spa, her hand steady on the wheel, but her mind churning with the fragments Matt had shared. The child's death, the self-imposed exile. It painted a picture of a man broken, not by failure, but by the weight of what he couldn't fix. Back in her penthouse that evening, the city lights twinkling like distant accusations through the rain-smeared windows, she pored over Ray's expanded report, the documents spread across her glass dining table under the harsh beam of a desk lamp. Photos of Matt's old life emerged in stark detail. Him in a white coat stethoscope, draped around his neck, standing in a sterile hospital corridor at Seattle General, his smile confident amid a team of surgeons. The operating room shots showed intense focus under glaring lights, instruments gleaming on trays, his gloved hands poised over an open cranium. But the report delved deeper now, uncovering layers she hadn't anticipated. Colleagues' testimonies buried in archived emails, praising his innovative techniques in minimally invasive procedures that had saved dozens before the tragedy. Emily sipped her herbal tea, the steam rising in curls that blurred the printouts, her psychology shifting from intrigue to a reluctant admiration laced with pity. The incident report detailed the fateful surgery. An 8-year-old boy named Tommy, admitted with severe headaches, dismissed as dehydration by the ER. Matt had pushed for scans spotting the aneurysm, but during the clip placement, a vessel tore unexpectedly. Complications from an undiagnosed clotting disorder. The boy's heart flatlined on the table, the monitors beeping in frantic rhythm as the team scrambled. Official hospital logs listed it as a rare anomaly, but internal memos hinted at rushed protocols under budget cuts. Matt's name appeared redacted in the final review board summary, a person erased from official records to shield the institution from liability. He had resigned quietly, forgoing a fight, his license still active, but untouched since, as she flipped through a faded scan of an unsigned contract caught her eye. A research grant for neural imaging tech he had co-developed, with a university lab missing his signature on the final page, the project credited solely to his mentors after his departure. It was a trace of a past achievement never mentioned in public annals, now gathering digital dust. Emily leaned back in her chair, the leather sighing under her, feeling the parallel to her own erasures. The algorithms she had coded solo in those garage days, now branded under Vance's patents. The viral video still lingered in her periphery notifications, pinging softly on her muted phone, but it felt distant now, overshadowed by this deeper mystery. The next morning, in the bustling chaos of her office tower, Emily met with her board in a conference room overlooking the Sound, the water choppy under grey skies. Charts projected on the wall showed dipping revenues, red arrows pointing downward like judgments. Her lead counsel, a sharp-eyed woman named Carla, outlined Vance's latest maneuver, a motion to freeze assets claiming embezzlement on her part. "We need hard evidence of his data tampering," Carla said, her pen tapping the table rhythmically. "Without it, we're exposed." Emily nodded absently, her thoughts on Matt. After the meeting, she slipped away to a quiet cafe downtown, the aroma of fresh ground coffee mingling with the scent of damp umbrellas at the door. She called Ray again, her voice low amid the clatter of espresso machines. More on Lawson, family connections, anything that explains why he vanished so completely. Ray's update came by afternoon. Matt's father, Dr. Harlan Lawson, a renowned cardiologist at a private clinic in Bellevue, had been a towering figure. Pushing his son into medicine from childhood, funding his education, but demanding perfection. After the incident, Harlan had distanced himself publicly, though private calls logged in old phone records showed heated arguments. Matt had cut ties, selling his upscale condo and donating proceeds to a pediatric charity, retreating to the cabin where he now lived, off-grid, no social media, no traces beyond utility bills. The revelation hit Emily like a cold wave, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup as she sat in the cafe's corner booth, rain streaking the window beside her. Harlan sounded like Vance. manipulative, image-obsessed. She imagined Matt's isolation, the cabin's rough-hewn logs and solitary evenings, perhaps with medical journals stacked unread on a shelf. Driven by this new insight, she returned to the spa that evening, the drive through twilight forests, where shadows lengthened across the path. The lobby was empty, save for Linda closing up the fireplace embers glowing faintly. "He's out back finishing chores," Linda said, gesturing to the rear door. "Been quiet today." Emily stepped outside, the air cool and pine-scented gravel crunching under her boots. Matt was stacking firewood near a shed, his breath visible in Puff's axe resting against a stump scarred from repeated blows. He looked up, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "Emily, didn't expect you again so soon." She approached slowly, hands in her coat pockets against the chill. "I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. The kid, Tommy Wright, I looked into it more. It wasn't just your call. The hospital cut corners." Matt's axe paused mid-swing, embedding in the wood with a thud. He straightened eyes narrowing in the fading light. "You dug deeper." "Why?" "Because I see myself in you," she admitted, her voice steady, despite the vulnerability creeping in. "Erased from your own story, your father's influence, pushing you then, abandoning ship." He set the axe down, leaning against the shed's weathered wall, its paint peeling in strips like forgotten layers. "Dad always said medicine was legacy. After Tommy, he called it a disgrace. Told me to fight it, Sue, if needed. But I couldn't. The guilt was mine." Emily stepped closer, the scent of fresh split wood sharp in the air. "Guilt doesn't erase talent. That grant you never signed. The neural tech, it could tie into my work. Vance stole similar ideas." Matt's gaze softened slightly, a flicker of interest breaking through. "Old projects. Useless now." "Not useless," she countered gently. "Help me understand the medical side. Vance manipulated trial data for our diagnostics AI. If I can spot the flaws—" He hesitated, glancing at the darkening sky where stars began to prick through. "Hypothetically check for inconsistent biomarkers. Aneurysms like Tommy's show in enzyme levels. If faked patterns repeat unnaturally." The advice was gold, her mind already racing to apply it. They talked as night fell, sitting on a nearby bench, the wood cool and splintered under them. Matt shared more the OR's metallic tang, the beeps turning to alarms, the family's grief-stricken faces in the waiting room, with its faded posters and unmarked doors leading to chapels. Emily listened, her psychology evolving into empathy, the chase becoming companionship. By the time she left the cabin, lights twinkling in the distance, a tentative truce had formed. Back home, she pored over company files late into the night, the screen's glow illuminating her determined face. Applying Matt's insights, anomalies emerged. Vance's datasets with fabricated consistencies like echoes of misdiagnoses. The following days blurred in a rhythm of office crises and spa visits, each conversation peeling back more of Matt's past. One afternoon in the treatment room, with its amber lights and that persistent cabinet outline on the wall, he admitted over a shared cup of tea. "I miss it sometimes. The precision, the saves. But not the pressure." "Then reclaim it," she urged softly, her hand brushing his. "On your terms?" His chuckle was low resonant in the quiet space. "Maybe. With the right reason." The uncovering had bridged their worlds, her initial obsession transforming into mutual respect. Yet Vance's threats escalated, an anonymous tip to media about her spa scandal reigniting the video's buzz. Emily ignored it, focusing on the evidence building like a fortress, in a quiet moment alone, staring at the unsigned contract scan on her laptop. She whispered to herself, "We're both ghosts. Time to haunt back." The whisper hung in the air of Emily's penthouse, like a vow the laptop screen casting a pale glow on her face as she closed the lid with a soft click. The unsigned contract faded from view, but its implications lingered, a silent reminder of how easily accomplishments could be stripped away. She glanced at the clock, nearly midnight, the city's hum reduced to a distant murmur through the insulated windows. Sleep eluded her again, thoughts of Matt intertwining with strategies against Vance, but tomorrow promised another chance to bridge the gap. For the first time in weeks, the weight on her chest felt fractionally lighter, as if sharing burdens had begun to redistribute them. By dawn, Emily rose early, the skyline bathed in soft pink hues that filtered through her blinds. She dressed simply, jeans and a sweater forgoing the power suits that armored her in boardrooms, and drove to the spa. Before opening hours, the roads empty, save for delivery trucks rumbling past. The forest enveloped her SUV in a canopy of evergreens dew, glistening on needles like unshed tears. Parking in the gravel lot, she spotted Matt's truck already there, its faded blue paint chipped from years of rural drives. She approached the back entrance where he was unloading supplies from a shed, boxes of oils and linens stacked neatly on a cart. The air carried the sharp tang of morning mist mixed with earth, grounding her nerves. Matt looked up, surprise flickering across his features as he set down a box with a thud. His flannel shirt was rolled at the cuffs, revealing forearms corded from labor, and his hair was tousled from the breeze. "Emily, you're early. We're not open yet." She hesitated at the edge of the path, hands clasped in front of her, to steady the tremble. "I know. I couldn't wait. Last night, after we talked, I realized I owe you more than words. A real apology." He wiped his hands on his jeans, gesturing to a nearby picnic table, weathered by seasons, its surface etched with faint carvings, initials and dates long forgotten. They sat across from each other, the wood cool under her palms, birdsong filling the awkward pause. Matt's eyes searched hers, wary but not closed off. "You already said sorry. Digging into my past. That's done." It's not just that she replied softly, her gaze dropping to the table's grain, tracing a line with her finger. "I came at you like a business deal. The offer, the pressure, it was wrong. I've been so wrapped up in saving my company, I treated you like another asset. But hearing about Tommy, your dad, it hit me. I've got my own ghosts. Vance wasn't just a partner. He was family. We started with nothing, coding in a basement, dreaming big. Now he's suing me, claiming I doctored the books. And the worst part of me wonders if I deserve it, for trusting too much, for not seeing the signs." Matt leaned forward slightly, his elbows on the table, the scent of soap and wood shavings wafting toward her. A small unmarked room in the shed behind him caught her eye through the open door. Plain walls, a single bulb hanging bare, perhaps a storage for old tools or mementos never unpacked. "Trust is a risk. I learned that the hard way. Dad drilled it into me, success at any cost. After the surgery, he said, fight the blame, keep the name clean. But I couldn't pretend. Walking away felt like the only honest thing." Emily nodded, her throat tightening with the vulnerability she rarely allowed. The morning light shifted, casting long shadows across the table, highlighting the faint lines of regret on his face. "I get that. My mum died young. Cancer misdiagnosed. That's why I went into med tech, to prevent those mistakes. But with Vance, I let ambition blind me. Now the company's crumbling and I'm alone with it." He reached across his hand, hovering before gently covering hers, the contact warm and tentative. "You're not alone now. Not if you don't want to be." The touch sent a ripple through her, a shift from isolation to possibility. They talked as the sun climbed words flowing like the nearby stream, bubbling over rocks. Matt opened up more, describing the OR's sterile chill, the weight of the scalpel in his hand, the moment the monitors flatlined, sounds that still echoed in his dreams. I replay it, wondering if a different angle, a second scan. But regrets don't change facts. They shape us, though, Emily said, squeezing his hand before pulling back. Mine have me questioning everything. The viral mess. It's humiliating, but maybe it forced me to stop running. By mid-morning, Linda arrived, unlocking the front door with a jingle of keys, glancing their way with a knowing smile but saying nothing. Matt stood offering to walk Emily inside. In the lobby, the fireplace was cold ashes from the previous night, a grey reminder of fleeting warmth. "Stay for tea?" he asked. "No massage, just talk." She agreed, and they settled in the back office, a cosy space with mismatched chairs and a kettle humming on a hot plate. The walls held faded certificates for massage therapy, but one spot showed a lighter patch, a trace of a past achievement never mentioned, perhaps a medical award hastily removed. Over steaming mugs, Emily shared vulnerabilities she'd buried the sleepless nights after her mum's death, the drive that built Thompson Innovations, from scraps, the betrayal that left her doubting her judgment. Vance knew my weaknesses. He timed the theft perfectly, right before a major launch. Matt listened intently, his mug cradled in both hands, steam rising like confessions. Sounds calculated. In surgery, patterns matter. If his data's off, look for inconsistencies in patient simulations. AI can't fake biological variants perfectly. His insight sparked a plan, her mind clicking into gear. You're right. I could use that. But enough about work. Tell me about life here. The cabin, the solitude. He smiled faintly, the first genuine one she'd seen softening his features. Quiet. Hikes at dawn, reading old journals. It's healing in a way. No expectations. The conversation deepened their connection, each revelation a thread weaving them closer. Emily felt her guarded walls crumble, replaced by a tentative trust. As she left later, the sun high and warming the air, she turned back at her car. "Thank you, Matt, for listening." Anytime he replied, his voice carrying across the lot. Really, back in Seattle, the office buzzed with urgency. Emails from Carla detailing Vance's escalating demands, a court date set for next month. Emily dove in, applying Matt's advice to the data audit's anomalies, surfacing like cracks in ice. But her thoughts returned to the spa, the humble exchange that had cracked her open. Over the next few days, their meetings became routine. Early mornings or late afternoons, sharing stories under the trees or in that unmarked back room. Matt confessed more regrets, the patients he couldn't save, before Tommy, the father's disapproval that echoed in his choices. He wanted a dynasty. I wanted to help people. You still do, Emily assured him one evening as dusk painted the forest in purples. Your hands heal now without the knife. He nodded, a weight lifting visibly. Maybe. Talking to you. It reminds me I'm not defined by one mistake. The bond solidified vulnerabilities exchanged like gifts. Emily's psychology transformed the apology, evolving into alliance. Yet Vance's shadow loomed. An anonymous letter arrived at her office, hinting at personal indiscretions to be revealed in court. The envelope unmarked, its threat palpable. She shared it with Matt during their next meet, the paper crinkling in her hand. He's desperate. But with your help, I can fight back. Matt's eyes hardened with resolve. Then let's dissect it, step by step. The humble beginning had sparked something profound. Regrets aired like dust shaken from old rugs, paving the way for healing. The vow echoed faintly in Emily's mind as she navigated the evening traffic back to Seattle headlights, piercing the gathering dusk like probing eyes. The anonymous letter lay crumpled on the passenger seat, its threats a tangible weight, but the conversations with Matt had infused her with a quiet resolve. She stopped at a drive-thru for a black coffee, the bitter steam rising from the cup holder as she sipped the radio droning local news about tech layoffs, another reminder of her company's precarious edge. At home, she spread the data files across her kitchen island, granite cool under her forearms, applying Matt's biomarker tips with renewed focus. Patterns emerged slowly like shapes in fog, Vance's alterations in the AI simulation's enzyme levels, manipulated to skew results. It wasn't proof yet, but a thread to pull. The next morning brought a crisp clarity to the air, the sound bathed in sunlight, as Emily's team huddled in the conference room, whiteboards filled with sticky notes fluttering under the AC vents. Carla paced her heels, clicking rhythmically, outlining deposition prep. We need medical expertise to discredit his claims. Our in-house docs are conflicted. Emily nodded, her thoughts drifting to Matt. After the meeting, she texted him, a simple coffee later, her phone buzzing with his reply, "Sure. Cabin at 4. The invitation felt like progress, a step into his world. She drove out early the highway, giving way to gravel roads, winding through dense woods where sunlight dappled the path in shifting patterns. Matt's cabin sat nestled in a clearing, a modest A-frame with cedar siding weathered to a soft grey smoke curling lazily from the chimney. Wildflowers bordered the porch, their petals vibrant against the muted tones, and an old pickup truck parked beside a woodpile spoke of self-reliant days. Matt greeted her at the door, a mug in hand. His flannel shirt open at the collar, revealing a simple chain necklace, perhaps a remnant from his surgical days. The interior was sparse, but warm, knotty pine walls, a stone hearth with crackling logs, bookshelves lined with medical texts and nature guides, their spines faded from use. In one corner, an unmarked room caught her eye through a half-open door. Plain walls, a desk cluttered with papers, no labels or signs, as if it were a space deliberately left, undefined, a sanctuary for unfinished thoughts. "Welcome," he said, handing her a steaming cup. "Black right. Figured from your vibe." She smiled, taking at the ceramic warm against her palms. "Spot on. This place is peaceful. Suits you." They settled on the porch swing, the chains creaking softly with their weight, overlooking a meadow where deer grazed in the distance. Conversation flowed easily now, building on the apologies and revelations. Emily shared the letter's details, her voice steady but edged with frustration. "Vance is playing dirty. Hints at exposing my instability. The video, probably. But your advice on the data? It's working. Found mismatches in the trial logs." Matt nodded, his eyes on the horizon, where the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in oranges. "Good. Stress like that manifests physically. Tight chest headaches. You're carrying it all here." He tapped his temple lightly. "Try this deep, diaphragmatic breathing. In for 4, hold 4, out for 6. Old med school trick for pre-op nerves." She tried it, inhaling the pine-scented air, feeling the tension ease fractionally. "Better already. You should teach classes." He chuckled, a low rumble that vibrated the swing. "Nah. But seriously, hydration walks. Nature resets the mind. I hike these trails daily. Clears the fog from everything." As days unfolded, their meetings wove into a pattern, alternating between the spa's quiet rooms and the cabin's rustic charm. One afternoon at Evergreen, amid the eucalyptus haze, Matt guided her through stretches on the massage table, his hands demonstrating pressure points without the formality of a session. The salt lamps cast golden pools on the bamboo floor, highlighting the faint outline on the cabinet wall, a trace of a past achievement, maybe a framed photo or certificate, now absent, leaving only a lighter patch like a ghost of recognition. "Acupressure here for adrenal fatigue," he explained, pressing gently on her wrist. "Your pulse is racing. Workload." Always, she admitted, her eyes closing briefly. "Board wants miracles. Vance's suit is draining us." He paused, his touch lingering. "Then prioritize. In surgery, triage saves lives. Focus on the bleeders first. The data fraud." His knowledge bridged their worlds, practical tips blending with empathy. Evenings at the cabin deepened the bond. They cooked simple meals, grilled salmon from local markets, salads with foraged greens, the kitchen filled with the sizzle of pans and shared laughter. Matt opened a dusty box one night, pulling out old journals, their pages yellowed. Pre-incident notes, neural pathways, AI potential for diagnostics, never pursued after. Emily leafed through the handwriting, precise diagrams, sketched in fine lines. "This is brilliant. Ties directly to my tech. Why hide it?" "Guilt," he said, simply stirring the pot on the stove, aromas of garlic and herbs wafting up. "But talking to you makes me rethink." The trust built layer by layer like sediment in a stream bed. Emily confided fears she'd buried, the isolation of leadership, the echo of her mom's misdiagnosis, fueling her drive, yet haunting her failures. "I built this company to fix that. Now it's fracturing." Matt listened by the fire pokers clinking as he adjusted logs, sparks flying upward. "Fractures heal stronger if set right. You've got resilience. I see it." In return, he shared glimpses of his exile solitary hikes, where he'd replay the surgery, the cabin's quiet nights with only the wind for company. "Thought I'd never connect again. Too broken." "You're not," she whispered one twilight, their hands brushing as they watched stars emerge. "You're healing me without trying." The genuine bond fostered subtle shifts. Emily slept better, her stress lines softening, while Matt's posture straightened, his eyes brighter. Yet external pressures mounted. Carla called with updates, Vance's team demanding settlements, the office abuzz with rumors. Emily applied more of Matt's insights, cross-referencing medical journals he lent her, pages dog-eared from his reads. A weekend hike sealed the deepening trails winding through mossy forests, boots crunching leaves, the air alive with bird calls. Matt pointed out edible berries, his knowledge vast. "Nature's pharmacy. This one's for inflammation. Good for post-stress recovery." She plucked one tart on her tongue. "You know so much." "Wasted here." "Not wasted," he countered, pausing at her overlook, the valley sprawling below in greens and blues. "But maybe expandable." Back at the cabin over hot cider, steam curling in the lamplight, Emily broached it. "Help me officially consult on the case. Your expertise could nail Vance." He set his mug down, the thud echoing softly. "Risky. My past. We face it together." She urged, her hand on his arm, feeling the pulse there. He met her gaze, the fire reflecting in his eyes. "All right. For you." The agreement marked a turning point. Trust solidified into partnership. As she drove home, under a starry sky, the cabin fading in the mirror, Emily felt anchored the bond, a lifeline amid the storm. But Vance's next move loomed. An alliance whispered in legal circles, his reach extending like shadows at dusk. The alliance whispered in legal circles materialized like a storm cloud over Seattle. Vance's counter-lawsuit, landing on Emily's desk with the thud of inevitability. The documents, thick and bound in a plain manila folder, detailed accusations of fraud on her part, claiming she had inflated trial results for their AI diagnostics tool to secure funding, while he positioned himself as the wronged innovator. Carla handed it over in the office suite, the afternoon sun slanting through blinds to stripe the carpet in harsh lines, her face etched with concern. Emily scanned the pages, her fingers tracing the legalese, the scent of fresh ink sharp in the air. The claims, twisted facts she knew intimately, data sets from early prototypes, now alleged to be doctored under her directive. Her pulse quickened, a familiar knot forming in her stomach, but the budding partnership with Matt tempered the panic. This wasn't a solo battle anymore. She drove to the cabin that evening, the road slick from a sudden shower wipers, sweeping rhythmically across the windshield. The letter from before paled against this. Vance's move was aggressive, seeking not just dismissal of her suit, but damages that could bankrupt Thompson Innovations outright. Matt's porch light glowed like a beacon as she pulled up gravel, crunching under tires. He met her at the door, concern furrowing his brow as he took in her tense posture. The living room welcomed her with the crackle of a fresh fire logs popping softly, casting flickering shadows on the pine walls. An unmarked room off the hallway drew her glance, its door ajar, revealing shelves of boxed files, no labels, as if archiving a life deliberately obscured. "Vance filed," she said, without preamble, handing him the folder as she sank into the worn armchair, the fabric soft from years of use. "It's bad. Accusing me of the very thing he did, manipulating the medical data." Matt flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning with the precision of someone versed in dissecting complexities. He set it down on the coffee table, a scarred oak piece cluttered with coasters and a half-read book on neurology. "He's projecting. Classic deflection. But to prove it, we need to trace the alterations back to source code timestamps." Emily leaned forward, elbows on her knees, the fire's warmth seeping into her chilled skin. "My team's on it. But they're techies, not med experts. The trials involved real patient simulations, biomarkers scans. If he faked those, then it's traceable." Matt finished standing, to pace slowly, his footsteps muffled on the rug. "In neurosurgery, we cross-verify with physical indicators. Same here, AI outputs should align with biological variability. Pull the raw logs. Look for uniform patterns where there should be chaos." His words ignited a spark, her mind shifting from dread to strategy. They spent the evening huddled over her laptop, the screen's blue light illuminating their faces as rain pattered against the windows. Matt pointed out inconsistencies with a surgeon's eye enzyme fluctuations that repeated too perfectly, like echoes in a controlled echo chamber rather than organic responses. "See this aneurysm markers? They don't cluster like that in real cases. Tommy's scans were erratic. These are sanitized." The mention of the boy hung briefly, a shadow crossing his features, but he pushed on his voice, steady. Emily felt the bond strengthen his expertise, a lifeline threading through the chaos. By midnight, they had outlined a rebuttal, key points for Carla, flagged datasets for forensic audit. As she prepared to leave, the storm easing to a drizzle, Matt touched her shoulder. "We'll beat this. Together. Promise?" she asked, half joking, but her eyes searched his for reassurance. He nodded, his hand lingering. "Promise." The following days blurred into a frenzy of preparation, Emily shuttling between the office tower, its glass facade reflecting stormy skies, and the cabin's serene isolation. In board meetings, projectors hummed casting graphs on walls where a motivational poster had been removed, leaving a rectangular fade, a trace of a past achievement never mentioned, perhaps an employee award from better times. Her team marveled at the new insights, crediting her anonymous consultant, while whispers of the viral video faded amid the crisis. Matt dove deeper, borrowing her secure laptop to review encrypted files, his fingers flying over keys with unfamiliar speed for a masseur. One afternoon at the spa, during a rare quiet hour, They worked in the back office, the kettle's whistle piercing the hush. Linda peeked in, offering sandwiches, her smile warm but curious. "You two make a good team." Emily glanced at Matt, who was annotating a printout red pen marking discrepancies. "We do." She agreed, the words carrying unexpected weight. He looked up, meeting her gaze. "This variance here, it's not random. Vance likely used a script to normalize outliers. In med terms, it's like forcing a flat line on a volatile EKG. The analogy clicked, her psychology buoyed by his acumen. "So we subpoena the originals. Prove the tampering." "Exactly," he said, capping the pen with a click. "But be careful. He's got pull in med circles, my dad's old network." The warning lingered, but they pressed on. Evenings at the cabin evolved into collaborative sessions, simple dinners of pasta and wine fueling late-night dissections. Matt shared more surgical anecdotes, his voice softening in the firelight cases, where data saved lives, others where intuition bridged gaps. "Your AI could revolutionize that, if clean." Emily poured refills, the wine's deep hue swirling in glasses. "It was meant to. Mum's misdiagnosis. Late stage, no warning. This tech detects early." He reached for her hand across the table, the contact grounding. "Then fight for it. For her." The gesture deepened their intimacy, touches, lingering longer conversations veering personal amid the professional. One night, as thunder rumbled outside, shaking the cabin's panes, Matt confessed over flickering candlelight. "Helping you? It's stirring old files. Maybe I could consult more post this. You should." She encouraged, her thumb tracing his palm. "The world's lost enough without you hiding." He smiled faintly, the storm's flash illuminating his features. "Hiding kept me sane. But you're changing that." The counter-lawsuit's pressure mounted. Depositions scheduled, Vance's lawyers deposing her staff, the office air thick with tension. Emily arrived at one session in a stark courtroom annex, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the scent of stale coffee pervasive. Vance sat across, smug in his tailored suit, his eyes cold as he spun narratives of her ambition run amok. "She always cut corners," he stated flatly during his testimony, the recorder's red light blinking like an accusation. Her rebuttal burned inside, but she held composure. Carla's notes guiding her. Back at the cabin, later venting to Matt, the frustration spilled. "He's lying through his teeth, twisting our history." Matt listened, stoking the fire with a poker sparks ascending. "Liars trip on details. We have the data. Use it." They refined the evidence packet, Matt's medical lens, uncovering a pivotal flaw, manipulated scans mirroring rare conditions, too precisely ignoring statistical noise. "This isn't science, it's fiction," he declared, printing the analysis on his old inkjet, the machine whirring laboriously. Emily felt empowered, the partnership, a counterforce to Vance's assault. As the legal battle intensified, their bond provided solace. Walks in the meadow hands intertwined the grass damp underfoot. "Thank you for this," she murmured one dusk, the sun setting in fiery streaks. "For you anything," he replied, pulling her close, the embrace a promise amid uncertainty. Yet the kinesis built. An email from Carla warned of Vance's new tactic, reaching out to influential contacts, perhaps even Harlan Lawson, to discredit potential experts. Emily's resolve hardened, the counterattack poised. The email from Carla lingered in Emily's inbox like a veiled threat, its subject line, urgent Vance's network moves, blinking unread for a moment before she clicked it open in the quiet of her penthouse. The city lights sprawled below a glittering web, indifferent to her turmoil as rain tapped insistently against the glass. Carla's message detailed rumors from legal circles. Vance had been spotted lunching with high-profile figures in Bellevue's upscale districts, including a prominent cardiologist whose name sent a chill through her, Dr. Harlan Lawson. Matt's estranged father, with his ironclad reputation and deep pockets in medical philanthropy, could sway opinions in boardrooms and courtrooms alike. Emily set her phone down on the marble countertop, the cool surface grounding her as she poured a glass of water, the faucet's drip echoing her racing thoughts. This wasn't coincidence. Vance was digging, allying with shadows from Matt's past to undermine their budding case. She texted Matt immediately, her fingers hesitant over the screen. "Need to talk." "Vance, reaching out to your dad." His reply came swiftly. "Come over." And she grabbed her coat, the drive to the cabin, a blur of headlights on wet roads, the wiper's rhythmic swish mirroring her unease. The alliance felt insidious, a convergence of betrayals that threatened to unravel the trust she and Matt had woven. Arriving at the clearing, the cabin's windows glowed warmly against the night smoke, twisting from the chimney like whispered secrets. Matt opened the door before she knocked his face, drawn under the porch-light shadows, accentuating the lines of worry around his eyes. "Emily," he said, pulling her inside the door, clicking shut behind them. The air carried the faint scent of pine from the fire logs crackling in the hearth. "I got a call from him an hour ago." "Dad," said Vance, approached him. "Offered mutual benefits if he discredits any expert testimony from me." She shed her coat, hanging it on a hook by the door, where an old jacket of Matt's dangled, faded and patched. They moved to the living room, settling on the couch with its threadbare cushions, the coffee table strewn with their recent printouts, data analyses now at risk. Emily's psychology teetered between anger and fear. This shadow of influence extended Vance's reach into personal realms, turning allies into weapons. "What did Harlan say?" she asked, her voice low, watching Matt's hands clench in his lap. He stared into the flames, the fire's glow dancing on his features. "He wants me back in the fold. Redeem the family name," he said. "Join his clinic, testify against you. Claim your tech's flawed based on my unstable history. If not, he'll leak the full incident report on Tommy. Make it look like negligence, not accident. Ruin my quiet life here, and drag you down with it." The words hung heavy, the room's warmth suddenly stifling. Emily reached for his hand, feeling the calluses from his spar work, a stark contrast to the surgeon's precision he once wielded. An unmarked room loomed through the hallway door, its bare walls holding boxes of old medical files, no labels to betray their contents, a deliberate void in his reconstructed life. "He's blackmailing you. Through Vance." "God, Matt, this is low even for them." Matt pulled away gently, standing to pace his boots, scuffing the wooden floorboards worn smooth by solitary steps. "Dad's always been about control. Pushed me into med school, funded it all, but with strings. After Tommy, he erased me from his narrative. No mentions at galas, no family photos. Now this alliance. It's his chance to pull me back or break me." Emily rose too, approaching the window where rain streaked the panes, blurring the dark forest beyond. Her reflection stared back, resolute, yet vulnerable, the alliance's shadow creeping like fog. "We can't let them. The evidence we're building, it's solid. But if Harlan exposes your past, the media will feast. The viral video was banned. This could tank the company." He stopped pacing, leaning against the mantel where a small clock ticked steadily, its face cracked from some forgotten fall. "I know. Vance must have dug deep to find him. Probably promised funding for Dad's research wing. Mutual destruction if I help you." The conversation stretched into the night, the fire dying to embers as they dissected options. Matt shared more about Harlan, the domineering patriarch in tailored suits, hosting lavish dinners in his Bellevue mansion, with its manicured lawns and crystal chandeliers where medical elites networked over aged scotch. He called medicine a legacy, not a choice. Matt recalled, his voice tinged with old resentment. After the surgery, he said I shamed us. Cut me off financially, but kept tabs quietly. Emily listened, her mind racing to countermeasures. Anonymous tips to regulators, perhaps, or leveraging her own connections in tech philanthropy. But the personal toll weighed heavier. This threatened not just the lawsuit, but their fragile bond. "What will you do?" she asked, finally, the question hanging like smoke. Matt met her eyes, the embers reflecting determination. "Stand my ground, but it scares me, exposing that pain again." They sat in silence. Then the cabin's quiet, amplifying the storm outside, wind rattling branches against the roof. Emily felt a surge of protectiveness, her psychology shifting to fierce alliance. The next day dawned grey, the office tower's lobby bustling with employees clutching coffees, umbrellas dripping in stands. Carla met her in the elevator, files tucked under her arm. Confirmed Vance's firm subpoenaed records from Seattle General. "They're hunting for dirt on your consultant." Emily nodded, the doors dinging open to her floor, where glass partitions gleamed under fluorescent lights. In her suite, she reviewed the latest data packet anomalies highlighted in yellow, Vance's handiwork clear under Matt's lens. But Harlan's involvement loomed. A quick search on her secure browser revealed his recent speeches at conferences praising ethical tech, but with veiled jabs at flawed innovators. The alliance was solidifying, shadows converging. She met Matt at the spa, midday, the lobby empty, save for Linda organizing brochures, the fireplace unlit and cold. In the treatment room, with its salt lamps casting subdued glows, they whispered plans. Matt adjusted oils on the shelf, absent-mindedly, his fingers tracing bottles. "Dad left a voicemail. Choose wisely, son, or I'll ensure her reputation crumbles with yours." Emily's fists tightened at her sides, the sheet on the table crisp and untouched. "He's ruthless. Like Vance. We need to preempt this. Gather proof of their collusion." He nodded, but tension etched his posture. "It means facing him. Something I avoided for years." The afternoon blurred into strategy sessions via encrypted calls, Emily in her office, staring at the wall's faint mark where a partnership photo with Vance had hung, a trace of a past achievement never mentioned in current reports. Carla unearthed emails hinting at Vance's outreach to Harlan, back-channel promises of grants for testimony. The pressure built, Emily's nights fractured by dreams of collapsing empires. A direct confrontation came via phone that evening at the cabin, Harlan's voice booming through speaker as Matt answered. "Matthew, this foolishness ends. Vance showed me the files. Your help to that woman is misguided. Testify for us, or the Tommy incident goes public. Full details. Your error, the cover-up." Matt's face paled, but his voice held firm. "No cover-up, Dad. A tragedy. I'm done being your pawn." Harlan's laugh was cold, echoing. "Then watch her fall, and you with her." The call ended with a click, silence descending like a curtain. Emily embraced Matt, feeling his heartbeat race. "We'll fight this. Together." But the shadows deepened, Vance's next filing arriving the following morning. Motions to disqualify anonymous experts, citing conflicts. Emily's resolve hardened, amid the fear the alliance a dark force testing their union. The motions to disqualify landed like a salvo in Emily's email the next morning, Vance's legal team citing potential biases in unnamed consultants, their language laced with insinuations of hidden agendas. She read it in the dim light of her penthouse kitchen, the coffee maker gurgling as steam rose in lazy spirals, the city's dawn skyline, a hazy silhouette through the windows. The alliance between Vance and Harlan had escalated from whispers to overt warfare, threatening to expose Matt's past and dismantle their evidence before it reached the courtroom. Emily's fingers tightened around her mug, the ceramic hot against her skin, as she dialed Matt. Straight to voicemail, his greeting clipped and professional from his spa days. Unease prickled. He had mentioned a hike planned for the afternoon, but silence now felt ominous. She drove to the cabin mid-morning, the roads winding through forests, where mist clung to the underbrush like forgotten regrets, her SUV's tires humming on the pavement. The clearing appeared empty, his truck absent from its usual spot beside the woodpile, the porch swing swaying gently in the breeze. Emily knocked on the door, the sound echoing hollowly, then tried the handle. Unlocked as always in his trusting rural way. Inside, the air hung still, the hearth cold with ashes from their last fire, the coffee table cleared of printouts. A note lay on the kitchen counter, scrawled in Matt's precise hand. Need space to think. Back in a few days. Sorry. No explanation, no contact details, just absence, abrupt and jarring. Emily's stomach dropped to the paper, crinkling in her fist as she paced the living room boots, scuffing the floorboards. The unmarked room down the hall drew her eye, its door closed tight now, concealing whatever remnants of his medical life he guarded. She resisted the urge to open it, respect warring with desperation, but the disappearance gnawed at her psychology, trust fracturing under the pressure of Harlan's threats. Was this retreat or surrender? Vance's alliance had struck at their core, forcing Matt to confront demons she had only glimpsed. She texted him again, the message delivering, but unread then called the spa. Linda's voice came through surprised. Haven't seen him since yesterday. Said he needed time off. Everything okay? Not sure, Emily replied, her voice steadier than she felt. If he checks in, tell him to call me. The drive back to Seattle blurred in a haze of doubt rain starting to patter on the windshield like accusatory fingers. In the office, the tower's elevators hummed upward, depositing her in the bustling suite where assistants hurried with tablets and coffee runs. Carla met her in the conference room projectors, whirring to life charts glowing on the screen. Data anomalies circled in red from Matt's inputs. These are gold, but without your consultant's affidavit, Vance's motion could stick. We need him on record. Emily nodded absently, staring at the wall where a strategic map had been pinned, now removed after a leak scare, leaving pinholes like scars. A trace of a past achievement never mentioned in the crisis logs. Her mind replayed Matt's voicemail, the note's brevity stinging like betrayal. Had Harlan's call pushed him over the edge, she imagined him hiking remote trails, backpack slung over shoulders, honed by solitude, replaying their conversations amid the rustle of leaves and distant bird calls. The Alliance's shadow had isolated him, mirroring his post-Tommy exile. And now it tested her faith. Days stretched into a torturous wait, Emily's routine fracturing under the strain. Mornings began with checks of her phone, no messages, his line still diverting. The office buzzed with depositions, Vance's team grilling her engineers in sterile rooms with water pitchers sweating condensation, their questions probing for weaknesses in the AI's medical validations. Emily sat through one, her suit jacket stiff against her back, answering calmly, while inside doubt festered. The data integrity. She echoed a lawyer's query, her voice even. Verified through multiple simulations. Any discrepancies are post-theft alterations. But privately in her penthouse evenings, the silence amplified her questions. She pored over old emails from Matt, sparse but warm, tracing the evolution from stranger to confidant. The viral video resurfaced in her feeds, a cruel reminder of her impulsiveness now compounded by this vanishing. Was he regretting their involvement? Harlan's threats too potent, Ray's discreet check yielded little. No hospital admissions, no flights out, just a sighting of his truck near a trailhead 2 days prior. Emily drove there herself one afternoon, the path muddy from recent rain's boots, sinking into earth as she hiked a mile in calling his name to the indifferent woods. Wind whispered through pines carrying no response, only the distant rush of a stream. Back at the cabin on the third day, she let herself in again, the air mustia, now dust motes dancing in slanted sunlight. She brewed coffee in his machine, the gurgle filling the quiet, and sat on the porch, the swing creaking under her weight. Memories flooded their hikes, hands brushing his quiet admissions by the fire. Trust had been hard won yet fragile. Vance's betrayal had taught her that, and now this act echoed it. Her psychology teetered on the edge of resentment. Part of her wanted to rage at his cowardice, another understood the pull of old wounds. Harlan's influence loomed like a spectre, the father's voice, in that call, a weapon honed over years. A call from Carla interrupted her vigil, the phone vibrating on the wooden armrest. Vance is pushing for summary judgment. Claims our evidence is hearsay without sources. We need that consultant, Emily. I know she sighed, gazing at the meadow where deer had grazed during better talks. He's unavailable. Stall them. Hanging up, doubt crested. Had she misjudged Matt entirely? The disappearance forced spection, her pursuit of him the proposition, the digging. All aggressive, mirroring Vance's manipulations. Perhaps he needed space from her as much as from Harlan. That night alone in the cabin with permission from Linda, via text, Emily slept fitfully on the couch, the blankets smelling faintly of him, soap and wood smoke. Dreams twisted with OR lights and boardroom glares, Tommy's face morphing into her mother's misdiagnoses, haunting like ghosts. The fourth day dawned brighter sunlight filtering through curtains as Emily tidied the space, a futile bid for control. She opened the unmarked room, finally curiosity overriding restraint, the door creaking on hinges. Inside boxes, stacked against walls, held medical texts, faded diplomas, and a file labeled Incident Report. Its pages yellowed. A contract lay atop one pile unsigned at the bottom, a non-disclosure from the hospital, missing Matt's signature, the agreement to silence in exchange for no lawsuit, a relic of his erasure. She closed it quickly, guilt flooding her, but the find humanized his flight pressure from all sides. Past and present colliding. Returning to Seattle, the office awaited, with stacked briefs and tense faces. Emily met with the board in a room overlooking the sound waves, choppy under wind, her presentation steady, despite the inner turmoil. We're close to irrefutable proof. Give me time. Whispers followed her exit. Doubts about her leadership, the video's ghost lingering. That evening alone, with takeout congealing on her counter, Emily questioned everything her judgments, the bond's authenticity. Had trust been illusion, built on shared pain, but crumbling under real threat? On the fifth day, as court loomed and Vance's alliance tightened, a text finally pinged, "Back tonight. Cabin. We talk." Relief surged, tempered by wariness. The disappearance had scarred, leaving her to rebuild faith brick by brick. She arrived at dusk, the cabin's lights on smoke curling anew. Matt opened the door, looking haggard stubble shadowing his jaw eyes, rimmed with fatigue. "Emily, I'm sorry." She stepped inside, arms crossed against the chill. "Where were you? Harlan wins if you run." He closed the door, leaning against it. "Camping remote, no signal. Needed to face it alone. Dad's threats, my guilt." Almost called him almost caved. And she pressed voice sharp with pent hurt. "Didn't. Chose us. Got evidence too. Old emails from hospital proving cuts led to the error. Ties to Vance's data fakes." The revelation shifted the air, her doubt easing, as he pulled out a USB drive, the fire crackling back to life. But the act had tested them, trust bruised but not broken. The text arrived like a lifeline in the dim glow of Emily's office, late that afternoon, the screen's light cutting through the shadows cast by drawn blinds. She had spent the day in back-to-back meetings, the conference room's air thick with the scent of stale coffee and printer ink, as her team scrambled to fortify their case without Matt's direct input. Vance's motions hung over them like a guillotine, his alliance with Harlan amplifying every delay into potential disaster. Emily stared at the message again. Back tonight. Cabin. We talk. Her fingers hovering before typing a curt, on my way. The drive felt endless. The highway, a ribbon of asphalt under overcast skies, rain threatening, but holding off as if the weather mirrored her suspended breath. Arriving at the cabin as dusk settled, the porch light flickered on like an invitation, illuminating the gravel path, where puddles from earlier showers reflected the fading sky. Matt opened the door before she reached it, his frame silhouetted against the warm interior light stubble darkening his jaw and eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He looked like a man who had wrestled ghosts in the wilderness, hair-tousled shirt rumpled from days in the elements. The air carried the faint musk of campfire smoke, clinging to him, a reminder of his solitary retreat. Emily stepped inside without a word, at first the door clicking shut behind her, sealing them in the familiar space where the hearth now crackled with a fresh fire he must have lit upon returning. Emily, he started, his voice rough from disuse, gesturing to the couch where blankets still lay folded from her vigil. I'm sorry for vanishing. It was cowardly. She crossed her arms, standing firm near the kitchen counter, the wood smooth under her palms as she leaned against it. The unmarked room's door stood ajar down the hall, revealing the boxes she had glimpsed before, their contents, a silent testament to his unresolved past. Cowardly. It was devastating, Matt. The boards breathing down my neck, Vance's motions are piling up and you disappear right when Harlan's threats peak. I thought we'd built something real, trust partnership, but you ran just like after Tommy. He winced, rubbing a hand over his face, the scar on his knuckles catching the firelight. I did. Camped deep in the trails, no signal, just me and the memories. Harlan's call replayed in my head, his voice always commanding, always judging. I almost dialed him back, almost agreed to testify for them to make it stop. The guilt. It's like a weight I can't shake. Emily's posture softened fractionally, but her eyes remained sharp, the hurt lingering like a bruise. And what stopped you? Matt met her gaze, stepping closer, the floorboards creaking under his boots. You. Us. Out there, staring at the stars, I realized running again would erase everything we've uncovered. Not just the data, but me. I dug through old files in my pack, found emails from the hospital, proving budget cuts rushed that surgery. Patterns match Vance's fakes, manipulated variances to hide flaws. It's leverage. He pulled a USB drive from his pocket, holding it out like an olive branch, the small device glinting in the low light. Emily took it, her fingers brushing his, the contact electric despite the tension. She plugged it into her laptop on the coffee table, the screen blooming to life with folders of scanned documents, internal memos redacted, but legible showing pressured timelines and ignored warnings. One file stood out, a contract for equipment upgrades missing Harlan's signature as the approving board member, the page blank where his name should have sealed the deal, a trace of a past achievement never mentioned in the official inquiry that followed Tommy's death. This ties Harlan directly, she murmured, scrolling through the implications dawning. He overlooked the risks to meet quotas. If we link it to Vance's data tampering, it exposes their alliance. Matt finished sitting beside her, the couch dipping under his weight. Dad praised Vance's innovative tech in a recent speech, probably quid pro quo. But using this means facing him. In court, or sooner, the revelation shifted the air doubt giving way to strategy, though Emily's psychology still grappled with the abandonment sting. They talked late into the night, the fire popping softly as rain finally began to drum on the roof, hashing out plans over reheated stew from his pantry, the savory aroma filling the cabin. Matt confessed the hike's toe-blistered feet on rocky paths nights under a tarp where wind howled like accusations replaying Harlan's words. He said I'd shame the family again. But helping you, it's my redemption. Emily nodded her hand, finding his knee, the fabric of his jeans rough under her touch. Then let's make it count. Board's emergency meeting tomorrow. Vance is pushing for settlement. Come with me. Confront him there. He hesitated, eyes on the flames, then squeezed her hand. All right. For us. The next morning dawned crisp sunlight slanting through the cabin's curtains as they prepared Matt shaving in the small bathroom mirror, fogged with steam, Emily reviewing files on her phone. They drove to Seattle in her SUV, the city emerging from the mist like a fortress traffic humming around them. The office tower loomed, its glass facade reflecting the blue sky elevators, whisking them up to the executive floor where the boardroom awaited. Polished mahogany table leather chairs arranged in a semicircle, projectors humming faintly. The board members filed in suits crisp, and expressions grave, murmuring about stock dips and PR fallout. Vance attended virtually, his face pixelated on the screen, smug beside Harlan's stern profile. The older man's silver hair, impeccably combed tie, knotted precisely. Emily stood at the head heart, pounding but voice steady. Gentlemen, before we discuss settlement, new evidence has surfaced. Matt entered, then unannounced his presence, drawing gasps. Dressed in a simple button-down and slacks, but carrying the weight of authority from his surgical days. Harlan's eyes widened on the screen, his composure cracking. Matthew, what is this? Matt approached the table, plugging the USB into the projector files blooming on the wall. This is truth, Dad. Hospital memos showing you ignored upgrade contracts. He pointed to the unsigned page, the blank line glaring. To cut costs, it led to Tommy's death. And now you're allying with Vance to bury similar flaws in his stolen tech. Vance leaned forward, voice tinny through speakers. This is irrelevant. He's biased, disgraced surgeon. Biased Matt countered his tone even but edged. Or expert, your data fakes mirror those rushed scans. Uniform where biology's chaotic. Here's the proof. The room tensed, board members, shifting whispers rising like steam. Harlan's face reddened. You dare accuse me after what you did? Matt met his father's glare through the screen, the pixels doing little to soften the intensity. What we did. You pushed the quotas. I own my mistake, but you erased it from records to protect your legacy. No more. Emily stepped in her hand, briefly touching Matt's back for support. This evidence invalidates Vance's claims. We're countersuing for conspiracy. The meeting erupted in debate, but the tide turned. Board votes leaning toward fight, Vance's bluster fading. Harlan disconnected abruptly, the screen going blank, but not before a flicker of defeat crossed his features. As the room cleared, Emily turned to Matt, the victory bittersweet in the quiet aftermath. You did it. Faced him. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. We did. But it hurts, seeing his face, hearing the old venom. They left the tower together, the city bustling below the confrontation, a peak that left them drained, but united. Court filings followed swiftly, the evidence sealing Vance's fate. Tampering proven alliance exposed. Emily's company stabilized stocks, rebounding like a heartbeat revived. Yet the demons lingered in quiet moments, Harlan's silence a looming shadow, until a letter arrived weeks later. But that came after the dust settled. The boardroom's tension dissolved slowly after Harlan's abrupt disconnection, the screen flickering to a neutral blue that mirrored the calm settling over the assembled faces. Board members murmured approvals papers, shuffling as they adjourned, leaving Emily and Matt alone In the expansive space, the mahogany table reflecting the overhead lights like a polished shield. Outside Seattle's skyline, stretched under clearing skies, the Sound's waters calmer now, ferries cutting steady paths across the bay. Emily turned to Matt, her hand finding his in the quiet, the contact, a silent affirmation amid the victory's echo. The evidence had worked. Vance's tampering laid bare his alliance with Harlan, crumbling under the weight of exposed memos and unsigned contracts. Court proceedings accelerated in the following weeks, filings exchanged in sterile law offices, where clerks stamped documents with rhythmic thuds, the scent of fresh ink permeating the air. Vance's suit collapsed in a final hearing, the judge's gavel striking wood with finality, declaring Thompson Innovations vindicated and awarding damages that stabilized the company's ledgers. Investors returned stocks, climbing like vines reclaiming a wall, the office tower buzzing anew with innovation pitches and prototype demos. Emily stood in her suite one afternoon, gazing at the wall where a new plaque hung, recognizing the team's resilience, but noticing a faint outline. Beside it, a trace of a past achievement never mentioned, perhaps an old innovation award from the garage days, quietly removed during the crisis. The win felt profound, not just financial, but personal, restoring honor, through concrete actions that unmasked the villain's deceit. Matt's role emerged publicly in moderated terms, a consultant whose expertise turned the tide, his past shielded from full scrutiny, though whispers of his surgical history added layers to his quiet heroism. Harlan's silence followed the disconnection, no further threats, but a subtle shift. Anonymous donations to pediatric funds in Tommy's name, perhaps a gesture of atonement from the shadows. Matt processed it, gradually hikes in the forests, becoming shared. Now boots crunching leaves as they discussed futures under canopies of evergreens. Their bond deepened in the aftermath evenings at the cabin, evolving from strategy to serenity. One twilight, as the sun dipped behind the hills painting the meadow in golden hues, Matt knelt on the porch, a simple ring in his palm. White gold with a modest diamond, sourced from an ethical jeweler in the city. Emily, you've shown me healing comes from connection, not isolation. Marry me. She knelt too, tears blurring the view, her hand steady as she accepted. Yes. With you, I've learned trust rebuilds worlds. The wedding unfolded quietly, on a secluded beach along the Olympic Peninsula waves, lapping softly at the shore under a vast sky, only close friends and Linda from the spa in attendance. Emily wore a flowing white dress that caught the sea breeze, her hair loose and windswept, while Matt stood in a linen shirt and khakis barefoot on the sand. Vows exchanged amid the salt-scented air, promised partnership in all things rings, slipping onto fingers with the ocean's murmur as witness. No grand receptions followed, just a picnic on driftwood logs, laughter mingling with gull cries, the sun setting in fiery streaks over the water. In the months that ensued, they channeled the victory into purpose, founding the Renewal Foundation, dedicated to supporting medical error victims and promoting ethical tech in healthcare. The launch event in a modest Seattle venue drew quiet crowds, speeches emphasizing resilience over revenge funds, raised through donations rather than galas. Matt consulted part-time, his knowledge bridging spa simplicity with surgical insight, while Emily steered her company toward transparent innovations, algorithms now audited publicly. Harlan's reconciliatory gesture arrived unexpectedly. One crisp autumn morning, a letter in the cabin's mailbox envelope, thick with quality paper, his handwriting elegant but unsteady. Matt opened it by the fire flames, casting warm glows on the pages. Son, it read your stand, taught me what I refuse to learn, compassion over control. Forgive an old fool. Perhaps we start anew, Matt set it down, eyes misty, sharing it with Emily over breakfast, the scent of fresh coffee wafting. "It's a beginning," he said softly. "Not erasure, but amendment." She nodded her hand on his. "We've all got pages to rewrite." Their life settled into a rhythm of quiet impact, the foundation thriving the cabin, a haven where unmarked rooms now held shared mementos, photos from the beach foundation, blueprints, traces of lives intertwined. Emily whispered one night wrapped in blankets by the hearth. "Money builds empires, but love and trust rebuild souls." The story closed on that beach image, waves' eternal lessons, etched like footprints in sand. Truly value the unsung, forgive the past, embrace the underdog's light. Word count 812. Final dialogue ratio 26 art 10 was still what to kept. In the quiet aftermath of their triumphs and reconciliations, Emily and Matt found themselves often returning to that secluded beach where the waves whispered secrets of endurance and the horizon stretched endlessly, a canvas for unspoken dreams. The foundation grew steadily, its initiatives touching lives in subtle ways. Grants for overlooked innovators, counseling for those scarred by professional betrayals, all carried out with the humility of those who had walked through fire. Harlan's letter became a turning point, occasional calls bridging the chasm, his voice softer now, laced with the wisdom of regret as he contributed expertise to their cause without fanfare. The cabin evolved 2 unmarked rooms, transformed into studies filled with books on ethics and healing. The forest paths walked hand in hand under changing seasons, leaves crunching in fall snow, blanketing in winter. Emily's company flourished ethically, algorithms saving lives where misdiagnoses once loomed, while Matt rediscovered purpose in mentoring young surgeons, his hands guiding without the scalpel's edge. Their marriage deepened in everyday moments. Morning coffees on the porch, evenings by the fire, where silences spoke volumes, the bond a testament to resilience, forged in adversity. Yet ambiguity lingered in quiet reflections, the what-ifs of alternate paths, the faint echoes of erased records and unsigned contracts, reminders that honor restored is fragile nurtured daily. Perhaps it's just waiting for a name. What feelings or thoughts does this story evoke for you? Share in the comments below. We'd love to hear your reflections on unsung heroes and second chances. Where are you listening to this story from? Like, share, and subscribe to Fanciko Stories to follow our next story.